I will begin. So good evening. I'd like to call to order the Hampden-Wilbraham Regional School District Planning Subcommittee meeting. It is 5:32. We will do roll call. Don Davenport. Sean Kennedy.
Here.
Carrie Goodrich. And Michelle Boudreau here. If you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'll take a flag. Okay.
I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and justice for all. All right, here we go.
Okay. So begin. John, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will go right to the memorandum dated March 14th. It's entitled District Reconfiguration / Viable Options. It's in your packet. Just want to make sure everyone has a chance to take a look at that. When we last met, we had come up with a framework. Actually, I believe it was Mr. Kennedy came up with a framework for sort of organizing some of the options and narrowing things down. It was by throwing the regional agreement back into the mix. As you recall, when we said, let's not care at all about what the regional agreement said, there was 136 options. But then at the last meeting, we talked about, well, what if we made no changes to the regional agreement? What if we regionalized from 8 to 12, 7 to 12, 6 to 12, 5 to 12. And so this memo describes that. Now, we haven't discussed goals yet, and I do think that's something that's on the agenda for tonight. But I know that we have taken a look at the overcrowding that's happening in some of our buildings, the underutilization that's happening in some of our other buildings, and also there have been concerns I've discussed many times about if I could change one thing, it would be all of the switching that happens with our grade band model. So I added a color scheme to this memo. In the cells that are shaded blue, that's a place where the configuration or the change would make a positive difference in a building that's currently overpopulated. And you'll see some whole rows are gray. Those are areas where we're doing something to reduce the number of transitions, at least for some students. So looking at that, the first table is configurations with no changes to the regional agreement. One thing we could do there, and I think we discussed this last time, is we could move the 8th grade to the high school. That would address the overcrowding at the middle school. And really, it wouldn't require us to make any changes at all. So that's basically what you have without a change to the agreement. The other thing you could do is keep things the same, which is option 1. So moving on to if we regionalized in grades 8 to 12, that table is on the next page. One thing you'll notice is the more grades you regionalize at, the more options are available. In part because with each new iteration, you get more combinations that are available unique to that, and you get all of the combinations that were available in the prior iterations. So if we regionalized at 8 to 12, you still could do option 1 or option 2. Because you wouldn't necessarily have to change just because you regionalized. But then you have option 3 and option 4. Option 3 is really not much of a difference. The only change there is that Green Meadows is regionalized only to grade 7 and then would have to come to the middle school. The change you could make in number 4 is one that would address not only overcrowding at the middle school, but would also allow us to reduce the number of transitions for students in Wilbraham, and would also allow us to address overcrowding at Stony Hill. So that one has a few positive qualities to it, I think. Continuing on, if we regionalized for 7 through 12, that's the next table. Again, 1 to 4 you would still have as options because those are options available under less regionalized model. And here I think really, again, the only question is whether you would want to do grade band within Wilbraham, which is option 5, or whether you would want to adjust to do 2 to 5s at Stony Hill and Sewell Road. Again, if you did that, that would address the overcrowding both at Stony Hill and at Sewell Road. The reason you can't do more is because really all that's coming on here as new options are places to put the 7th graders, which again would all have to go to the middle school. Then you look at options if we regionalize in 6 through 12. That's the table on the next page. There are 10 options there because you have the 6 that are available under 7 through 12, and then you have 4 additionals. 7 looks very similar to the grade band options that we've had available all along. Again, the only difference there is Green Meadows students would have to move to the middle school in grade 6. 8 and 9 are similar to what you've seen before. They're the 2 to 5 options within Stony Hill and Sewell Road. They kind of sync up. One nice thing about this model is they kind of sync up to what's happening in Green Meadows. So after elementary school, which would end at 5th grade, everyone would go to middle school. Options you have here are where you want the middle school to be. If you're regionalized in 6 through 12, you can either have the middle school be in Wilbraham or be in Hamden. And it could be obviously our current middle school for grades 6 through 7, or it could be TWB. Obviously, having it at TWB resolves all the overcrowding at the middle school because the middle school would be would be closed under that model. Or having 6 through 7 at the middle school also resolves the overcrowding because you have the 8th grade at the high school. The other option, which is a new option, it's probably the only one that addresses all the overcrowding we saw, is option 10. In this model, you could take Mile Tree away from being pre-K to 1 and make it pre-K to K. So taking a grade out would free up space there. You could make both Sewell Road and Wilbraham Middle School 1 to 5s. And I think there'd be space at Wilbraham Middle School to do that, so you wouldn't have overcrowding there. Stony Hill could be closed, which would address the overcrowding there. And then the middle school, the only middle school in the district would be TWB, which would be 6 and 7. And then everyone would go to the high school for 8 through 12. And then if you regionalize 5 through 12, it really kind of becomes a little bit harder because it's hard to find places to catch the 5th graders coming out of Green Meadows. So you've already seen options 1 through 10. 11 would catch all the Green Meadows kids at Sewell. But when I think about the experience for those students, it would mean pre-K to 4 at Green Meadows, then they'd be at Sewell for 1 year, then they'd be at the middle school. So that kind of brings us back, at least for that group of students, to the thing we said we didn't want to do, which is have students in just one school for 1 year. you kind of have the same thing in option 12, because you'd still be doing the 2 to 5s in the Wilbraham schools, but again, in Sewell, which would have to be the school to catch fifth graders from Green Meadows, they'd still have that 1 year scenario. 13, kind of the same thing. It's just moving the middle school from Wilbraham to Hampton. And 14 is another version of 12, where you're moving the middle school from Wilbraham to Hampton. There is this other option, 15, where we try to align to that pre-K to 4 that would exist in Hampton. If we did that, we could have pre-K to K for Mile Tree, which would address overcrowding there. We could do pre-K to 4 in both Sewell and Stony. But the downside of this one is 5 to 7 would have to be in the middle school, and then we're right back to the overcrowding problem we have at the middle school now. It's just a different 3 grades. I don't think there's a reverse of this where we could put 5 through 7 in TWB, because there's even less space there, so the overcrowding issue would be even worse. So, to me, I think this kind of framework was helpful, because it really shows what the different options are with what we think are the realistic redistricting, or I shouldn't say that, modifications to the regional agreement. And it's a much more manageable number. So I guess with that, I would open it up to questions, observations, or thoughts about what you see in this week's memo.
Well, which options can we eliminate? Really, I mean, you know, the 2 that just create overcrowding in either middle school could be eliminated, right? We don't want to do that. That's like 14 and 15 or something like that.
Well, that would be 15. I don't think that 14 has the problem of creating overcrowding in the middle school. But I would say that 11, 12, 13, and 14 all have the problem of catching fifth graders just for a year.
At one school, right?
At Sewell Road.
Right. So, I mean, I guess those are elimination possibilities. We don't want to, I think we all agree we don't want to do that. I mean, maybe we can go step 1 back to the goals. So the goals are eliminate overcrowding, right? Utilize the space, the best space we can in the schools that are undercrowded, right? And save money.
I think reducing transitions was another.
The transitions, right?
Yeah.
And save money. Probably the last goal. I don't know.
I wouldn't say save money, but reallocate funds to more student-facing. Yeah.
I know what you mean. I don't know what the word is, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. Better spend.
Better spend.
Can I just say, I'm noticing I don't see Mary anymore. Is she still on this meeting?
She said that she can hear us, but she doesn't see us.
Maybe she's on the YouTube, which would be fine as long as she can hear us.
Okay.
That's the important thing.
She hears perfect, she said.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So, I mean, I think that we have these culled down to the different groups, right? John did a good job with that. I think we need to start, this is in my opinion, bringing in more stakeholders and having them review this over, because we brought it down. We really have it over. What is it? 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or is it more? 5, yeah, 5 different options, and then just see where people are leaning. You know, what does the teachers union think? Because I've been talking to different people about, you know, what's better, neighborhood schools or keeping all the grades together. And I haven't had one teacher that so far said that they think it's better to have neighborhood schools. All the teachers that I've been talking to have been saying, no, it's great when all the first graders and second graders are together. You have all the resources for the first graders right there, all the resources for the second graders right there. I want to do what's best for the children. I understand that, you know, if you're a parent and you have 4 kids, you could be, and you're driving your kids, you could be going to 4 different schools to pick up your kids, you know, and that can be just, you know, that could be very rough, is very rough for a lot of families out there. And I appreciate that, but at the same time, I mean, John, I mean, what is educationally more sound? And did Lisa Curtin join the meeting today? Or no?
She's not here now. Did you want her?
No, I had talked to her at the last school committee meeting about maybe having her, you know, just attend as you know, she's our curriculum director, to see what she would think of this. So, John, what do you think about, is there an educational argument for neighborhood schools, or is there an educational argument for the way we're doing it now with each grade and each in you know, together?
Can you also give a definition of neighborhood schools? Just for those, some people may have a different understanding of what it may mean.
Sure. So, and I would say that in these models, none of them would be what I would consider to be a neighborhood school. You know, a neighborhood school is usually defined by some kind of geographical area that hangs together in some way and has a school assigned to it. So, like in some communities, there are very distinct neighborhoods, like the north side, south side, whatever. I would say what we're talking about here is either doing grade band schools or doing slightly larger grade band schools that encompass more grades than a true community school. So in terms of the arguments, I am a little bit familiar with the research on transitions, because once worked in a district that had sort of a similar grade band set up, and they were wanting, it was a municipal district, but they were always desirous of trying to make some kind of a change so that they could reduce the number of transitions, because the piece of research they were looking at the time is that every time a student makes a change in a school, it sets them back to a certain extent. In fact, some of the research out there suggests that it's about a year to make up where they would have been if they didn't have to change the school. So there is an achievement effect. That would be the argument in favor of trying to make our grade spans slightly larger so that there are fewer transitions I could estimate. I'd say the arguments in favor of the grade span schools, which we don't have now, I'll just point that out, because Green Meadows is on its own, and in a lot of ways is kind of isolated from the rest of their grade level peers. The arguments in favor of that are keeping all of the teachers who are teaching the same content together so that they can support each other with professional development. It makes it easier to ensure that there is consistency of learning experience among all the different classes, because all the classes are there, and teachers can compare their practice to each other much more easily when they're on the same hallway. The other thing that I would say is not necessarily an educational reason, but is a just administrative reason for the grade span schools is when you have multiple schools that serve the same grades, you have to draw the line separating students into the multiple schools somewhere. And invariably, that's breaking up friends because you tend to be friends with people who you live near, and that line is going to come through someone's neighborhood, right?
And John, just remind me, what does SP under TWB mean again?
Right now, it only has a special program.
Okay.
So my thought, going back onto how we look at this is, if we keep our goals in mind, which are the overcrowding, reducing transitions and maximizing space, looking at under each configuration, each block of configuration, eliminating ones that don't meet those goals. Because I think that if we went forward to the public with this, I think, we just have to think about, are these all of the viable options that we want to present? So we want to make sure that we are eliminating ones that do not have our goals in mind. That would be my thought. So just kind of paring those down a little bit further before we move on to the next step. I'm not saying that we're making the choice, but again, just further paring down those lists under each possible configuration, looking at, whether we regionalize, whether we stay the same or regionalize from grades 8 to 12, 7 to 12, 6 to 12, or 5 to 12.
So if we look at the first section for what Michelle just said, page 1, option 1 and 2, they both work, right? Except for option 1, when you take into effect the crowding. Does that make sense to everyone? So we would eliminate option 1 and go with option 2?
Okay,
Michelle?
I would say yes.
Okay. Is Terry on yet or no?
No.
Okay.
there we go, okay.
And sorry, just to go really quickly, the Mile Tree, are we at overcrowding there with pre-K to 1?
It's tight. If you recall, that's the one where we had teachers who were in there trying to hold meetings from closets and things like that.
Okay.
Yep.
So in those situations, many of these, but just to keep that in mind, that's what I was thinking, but I just think that, so, I guess when we look at further considerations, just to keep that in mind.
Mhm.
But
Sean, so back to what you said, I'm in agreement with your statement.
So would there be a third option, let's say, that it would have at Mile Tree, pre-KK, Stony Hill 1 and 2, Sewell Road 3 and 4, Wilbraham Middle School 5, 6, and 7, and then Chog 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? Or does that not help us?
Wilbraham, if we have the three grades at Wilbraham Middle, then we are in the same boat that we are today.
Yeah, but the fifth graders don't go to specials and stuff like that. They pretty much just stay in that room, so they will require a lot less space, wouldn't they? John?
I think that you'll still run into that same problem. Your unified arts would be smaller, but just looking at the total number of spaces we would need for the classrooms, I think you're gonna be out of space again at the middle school.
Okay, so option 2 is better than option 1 because instead of having 2 overcrowded schools, we're just having 1 overcrowded school.
Well, instead of having 3, you're having 2.
Correct.
What do you mean 2? What's the other one?
You'd have Mile Tree and Stony Hill.
So we have 2 overcrowded and 1 kind of on the cusp of being overcrowded.
Yeah. Okay. So in all seriousness, none of these work. Right?
I would say that they don't. Oh, sorry.
If you're trying to totally resolve every problem, I would say that is almost a true statement. There is one that I think addresses all of the overcrowding, which is option 10.
But right now, we're going configuration by configuration.
Oh, sorry.
That's
So-
all right.
So yeah, that's correct. But I don't know if I would use the phrasing, it doesn't work. That's what I would say is,
It doesn't meet our 3 goals.
Our goals, correct.
Yeah, figure my language.
So I think we're not optimizing our
Right.
configuration with,
Yeah, but option 2 is a lot better than option 1 because it's one less school overcrowding. But then there's the issue, John, is there anything wrong with moving the 8th graders up to the high school, per their age group, per their education, a way that would scar or hurt the children?
no, I think the only thing that would be wrong is if we had a bad implementation. It will take time to plan it so that we can do it the right way.
Okay.
But there's no reason why per se it can't happen. In one of the, actually 2 of the districts where I've worked, there was a 7 through 12 junior high school. And, kids didn't suffer any adverse impacts because of that configuration.
But splitting up the middle school, that's 7 at one building, 8 in the other, that you don't see any problems with that?
I don't.
Okay. All right, so if we regionalize 8 through 12, we have these 4 options. Is there a preferred one out of these 4? Or a preferred 2, or is there any that we can eliminate?
well, I think if you keep our goals in mind, looking
Yeah.
at, and it's shaded appropriately to show where some of our goals are highlighted. Option 4, you have less
Yeah.
transitions.
Mhm.
You are eliminating overcrowding. We're still on the cusp with option 4, but I think it eliminates most of what we're looking for. And you have the 2, both Stony Hill and Sewell Road with, a larger grade band,
Right.
minimizing transitions.
I would say, and tell me what you think of this, what if we got rid of options 1 and 2 and then kept options 3 and 4? Just if we decide to have, grades per school or decide to have mini, community schools or neighborhood schools. Is that acceptable?
So you want to keep 3 and 4, right? 3 and
Yeah,
4.
just so for the 2 options.
Just to narrow some down, but also just continue the discussion, right? I'm
Right.
good with that. I'm good with that.
Michelle, you good?
Yes.
Okay. And again, Terry's not here.
Okay.
All right, so the third option, 7 through 12.
Well. So 1 is the same as before, right? The other 1 is the other one. 1 is 1.
1 is always 1. That's right.
Can I just ask a question?
I learned that in school.
So, in option 3 and 4, sorry, my dog. We have pre-K to 7 at Green Meadows, and then Stony and Sewell have 2 to 5, and then Wilbraham Middle 6 and 7. Oh, okay, forget it. I'm jumping ahead of myself.
No, what do you mean?
No, that's okay. It's going to come up as an opportunity in anher configuration. Sorry,
Oh,
I
okay.
was just thinking.
So if we regionalize 7 through 12, then 1 and 2,
They're gone.
yeah, 1 and 2 would go, right?
Yep.
But then also 3 and 4 would seem to go because it doesn't, why would we regionalize? Because 3 and 4 are the same as 3 or 4 above,
Right.
right? So really, for this one here, and tell me if I'm wrong, really 5 and 6 are the only 2 options.
Right, because we're gonna keep the 2 in the 8 through 12,
Mm-hmm.
and then those are gone down here, right?
Yep.
And then, so it's 5 and 6.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Michelle, what do you think?
Yep, I'm sorry. I'm looking at, sorry. I'm looking at, in the grades 8 to 12. Just, we agreed on keeping 3 and 4, but
Yes.
option 3 doesn't, we still have overcrowding at Stony Hill if we have grades 2 and 3. So,
Yeah, I know. The only reason I said that we would keep them both
Yeah.
is because in case that it's decided not to go to the neighborhood-ish schools, to give the 2 options. And that's the same thing that we're doing with 5 and 6 on the 7 through 12. It's just giving the 2 options. Rather than deciding that's it, like have the options there. So when we start sharing them with different people in the communities, they can go and they can see that, we haven't decided, we're
right.
taking in input and stuff. We're not deciding anything, we're just
No,
narrowing
no.
down the options.
I understand we're not deciding, but okay. My comment just is that if we are if we're keeping our goals in mind, that it's not about a decision, we can, I understand what you're saying. My point is, with
how
that
about this,
understanding,
Michelle?
why would we move forward with something that does not achieve our goal?
It achieves a lot of moving more towards our goal. How about we do this? Number 4 becomes number 1, number 3 becomes number 2.
Yeah, we can keep, that was just a point that I wanted to make, that's all. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I'm saying if we have the best option as number 1, maybe that's what we should, that's how we should present it. And then for the 7 to 12, again, we still have the Stony Hill problem. So number 5 would be number 2, and number 6 would be number 1. The most preferred.
Correct,
That answers our goals.
thank you.
Okay.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. All right. And thank goodness that Mrs. Kennedy just got us a new printer. All right. Grades 6 through 12. Okay, now a lot of these have been mentioned above, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Everything from 1 to
1
6
to
you've
6.
seen before.
Yeah, 1 to 6, right?
Yep.
All right, so let's just just get rid of 1 to 6 because there are already options that we've seen before. Right? And now we have 7, 8, 9, and 10.
So 7, we're not minimizing transitions,
Yeah,
and we're not reducing overcrowding.
right? And then the others are which school do we close out?
Correct, so 8 seems like we would
Yep.
achieve our goals.
And John, you said 10, and this one is the best option, meets the most goals?
It meets the most goals. I will point out as one thing I could anticipate without doing any study is that there'll probably be a lot of cost involved with getting the middle school ready and TWB ready for all those grades.
So the one that meets all 3 objectives, would that be number 8? Or mostly, because you're saying cost would be greater for 9 and 10.
I think that 8 and 9 are probably similar in terms of cost. I think 10 is the one that's the real, my guess is that'll be the real whale when it comes to costs.
And which one, if you said categorically is the best for education, 7, 8, 9, and 10, would you say it's number 10 or number 8 and 9?
I think I lean more towards 8 and 9. I think they're equivalent. It's the only difference is where you're putting the middle school.
So why in 10 but wouldn't 9 be the same cost as 10?
In 9, you got to get TWB ready,
Got
And in 10, you have to get both TWB and.
and the middle Wilbraham was, okay, all right, okay.
So tell me if this makes sense. So is it the way what we're saying, number 8 is now number 1, number 9 is number 2, number 10 is number 3, and number 7 is number 4 if we decide not to go with the quasi-neighborhood schools?
So are we putting certain goals? Are we prioritizing cost? Is that?
Yeah, that's one of the 3 goals, right?
No, I understand that, but if we look at what we're talking about, we're talking about 4 goals. And I'm asking, it's fine regardless of what the answer is. I'm asking, is cost, is that the number 1 goal? Is that what we're trying to hit first? Because when you look at number 10, so hear me out. So you're reducing the overcrowding at Mile Tree, and you've eliminated the transitions because you have 2 buildings with 1 through 5, and then you've eliminated transitions you've eliminated overcrowding at a middle school,
Right.
and you're maximizing building space at the high school. So I understand that perhaps cost is the largest, that would be the most costly out of the 4 options that we're discussing. So I'm wondering if we're prioritizing cost over all of the other goals.
No, not at all. I'm just saying that when I asked John just now, when you figure in cost as a 3rd or 4th, but overcrowding, transition, space, cost, right? So that 10 is at the best, if it's the best, but then there's going to be a cost issue. So that's why I'm saying it's become 3, as 8 and 9 are very similar, because there is going to be a cost at TWB and Wilbraham Middle School, which are going to be the same costs, for number 10. So if you take out cost, yeah, maybe number 10 would be number 1, but when cost is in there, I think it just brings it down to number 3.
Yeah, it was also just a general question. I wondered, as we haven't kind of talked about prioritizing goals, are certain things more important? So it's just something that I was posing to the group. That's all.
I know that we should probably say that cost is not an issue, but the taxpayers of our towns, they are giving a lot. We're asking for a lot. Costs are going up, and yeah, it would be a one-time cost, or maybe SBA. I don't know, that just takes so much time. I think cost should be equal.
I think we're looking at we're looking at cost for most of the changes that we're making, because I think that regardless of when we're talking about reconfiguration, there's going to be costs associated. And I think that's going to be a larger conversation once we've eliminated some of these options. But I think that I'm just curious, and I just think it's important to look at. Sorry, Don.
No, I was just saying that, but I think when we present these to people or to the stakeholders, as Sean says, the 1, 2, 3 doesn't necessarily mean that's what we think are the best. It's just, these are 3 options in this particular category. And here's each of the, things that go along with it.
I thought we were rating them in the ones that satisfy more things, And let's just say,
what I'm saying is we don't have to tell the stakeholders that's how we rate them.
Oh, okay.
Let them, you know what I mean? Let them figure it out,
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
I tend to agree with that. It's possible that the stakeholders might have a whole different set of concerns they're looking at.
Right.
And it might come up with a very different rating.
Right. So do we want to keep doing this, like rating them like 8, 1, 9, 2, 10, 3,
do that,
and 7, it's 4? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Is everyone okay with that? 8, 1, 9, 2, 10, 3, 7, 4?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Okay. Now we're doing 5 to 12.
Yep. So we can get rid of 1 through 10, correct?
Well,
Because we've seen them all before?
I think yes, but we also pointed out there are problems with 11 through 14, so. Well.
No, I'm just saying.
11 through 15, so. I'm wondering if 5 through 12 makes any sense.
5 to 12. Oh, you mean, I'm looking,
Wait,
you're
can you
talking
say
about
that?
the grade 5 through 12.
Right.
Right.
Right, grades 5 through 12, so I was talking about. Sean, did you want me to explain that a little bit more?
So I just wanted to get rid of 1 through 10 configurations. Is that
Right.
not okay, or?
No, that is okay.
Okay.
And I was saying, and we've
Yeah.
pointed out problems with 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, which leads me to the conclusion, if you cross everything off, should we even consider regionalizing 5 through 12?
Oh, wow. Okay, and what are the reasons for getting rid of number 11?
It's because you have the problem of what to do with the Green Meadows fifth graders. That's the problem that carries through all the way through 14.
Because
And
they'd
what's
only
the
be
problem
1
with
year
Green
in one
Meadows?
school, right?
Right.
Oh, right. So they're gonna but then their transitions would they would have 4 transition. In Wilbraham, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 transitions. So even though there'll be 1 year in 1 grade, there's still 1 less transition. Oh, I see.
Right. And if I'm a Hamden parent, I will go to the research I just shared with you and said, it's going to take my child a year to basically get adjusted to the change, and then they're going to have to make another change.
Okay.
Can I ask if we, with grades 8 to 12 at the high school, are we close to capacity?
We will be, we're using, I think, 1,250 students as our capacity for that building. I think we will be at about just over 1,100.
Okay.
Doesn't 15 work?
Well, so the problem is you have 3 grades at Wilbraham Middle, which is then we're not taking care of the overcrowding there. But then my thought is if you do number 15, but then, if you have 7 through 12 at the high school, if that doesn't put us over.
I think we're going to have trouble getting 7 up there.
Okay. So we would have overcrowding at the middle school, so where we would be in the same boat. While we've eliminated it at all of the other buildings, the transitions and the overcrowding, it looks like we would still have it at the middle school.
So it's an option. It's not the best option, but it's an option, right? It doesn't solve all of our goals, but I mean, we do want to have a couple of options here, even if we can say to people, yeah, listen, we shouldn't even consider this category of 5 through 12. We should just not even consider that. But we should have options there, at least 2, I would say.
Or even just the 1, because if you look at, again, those 5th graders, if you look at option 14 from Green Meadows, where are they going?
Yep.
And then that's a transition for 1 year, and then they're transitioning for 2. So, I mean, 15, in my opinion, if you want to present something under this category, 15 would be the only one, with the understanding that we're not eliminating the overcrowding in a building that is the most overcrowded, I would say, in our current position. But if you wanted to present something, in my opinion, I believe that 15 would be the one.
Is there a reason why we've never looked at an option of why is it always Green Meadows is like pre-K to 8, pre-K to 7, pre-K to 6, pre-K to 5? If we regionalize like all grades, would there be an option, that we could have the kids transition less? There
There would definitely be more options. There might even be some that allow less transitioning. The reason we didn't look at that is because last time we met, we said that there would be a great deal of anxiety about families having to move their kids across town lines at the lower grades. I mean, if you want me to look at further, we could go further.
And just, sorry, I wanted to ask about the special programs. You've put those probably at the high school?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I'm okay with
15?
with getting rid of them and just having 15 as our only option.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if we have to, if when we're talking with our stakeholders and we start getting, the finance and advisory involved and parents and teachers union and once everyone starts getting involved, we might have to bring some of these back on the table. But I think right now this brings it back to a lot, So we have 1 for option 1. We have 2 for option 2, 2 for option 3, 4 for option 4, 1 for option 5. I think that's taken it down to, I think everyone's going to find something here.
Well, it'll certainly start a discussion, that's for sure.
Yep. Now, how do we start these discussions? Is that okay to go to there, or did you have somewhere else you want to go first, Michelle?
No, I think, since we've done that, I think moving towards the next steps, what we want to do next and how we approach this is important, because I think, again, there's still a lot of information that needs to be provided with this to make this a more comprehensive discussion and scenarios for people to think about. So I think it's a good place to go next. Who we're bringing to the, John, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would advocate for this group directing me to invite the teachers union and some school staff to the next meeting.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
What do you think about maybe the principals as well?
Yep.
Do you think we need union and teachers, or is that one and the same?
Well, the union will have teachers and paraprofessionals,
Right?
so I think there should be some of both of those categories. So I wouldn't want to send out a message to teachers that didn't go through the union, because that might be perceived as sort of trying to neutralize them.
Yep.
So I would say to the union, this is open to anyone you want to bring. It doesn't have to be just executive board,
Right.
and let them decide how they want to communicate that to the membership.
Perfect. I totally agree with that. And then you said the other group was.
The paras, and they're also represented by the union.
Yeah. No. So we have the union, which covers the teachers and the paras.
Yeah.
Right. But I do think we need to bring finance and advisory on. Even if we just get 1 rep from each. What do you think?
I'm wondering if it would be better to have kind of an in-house discussion, if you know what I mean, because I think teachers sometimes will already be a little bit concerned if there's a bunch of administrators there and there's some elected officials there. I really want to create a space that encourages them to talk, and it might be good just keeping the next one to school staff and then bringing in other electeds at another.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's too early for the advisory committees and the selectmen and all that, I think you're
the selectman.
and they're real pains in the asses, those people. I think it's true. I think the professional staff first, the educators first.
Right.
So they may come up, they have a totally different idea. We may say, oh yeah, that's it. And then we can go to the next level, All
right, which brings me to the question that I have for the group. Okay, are we a committee or are we a subcommittee? Why I ask that is because if we are a subcommittee, it's usually just members of the school committee, and they do invite other people, but just the school committee votes. As this tends to be, at least, I mean, it's why I'm bringing this up, that we have members who are not on the school committee that are voting, equal voting members. So if this is a committee, could we break out to subcommittees and maybe have, over the next couple of weeks, 4 meetings? 1 meetings with the union and the teachers, 1 meeting with finance and advisory, 1 meeting with the principals, and then 1 meeting maybe with parents, something like that. And break it up and then come back and then see what we see, for what we've heard. Is that something that's possible or not? I'm asking.
My hesitation about doing it that way is that we're not, I don't know if it's doing our due diligence before we present something. I think that we want to make sure that we have done the best that we can to be as thorough and get as much information. So when we share it, we can present that. And I feel that if we do it over the next 4 weeks and meeting separately with different groups, we don't have a comprehensive picture to share with the stakeholders and the various groups.
So you're saying that maybe we should all meet with each group of stakeholders?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
should.
there's only
Sure.
4 of us. I mean, I don't think the group is too large where it's been difficult to or challenging to meet. And I think that it's important that we're all hearing the same information and we're all at the table and asking questions and doing what we do.
Yeah. Well, considering that half of our meetings, we've only had, 3 people at the meeting. But sure, I have no problem with that. I think that's absolutely great. Super. I was just asking.
Sure.
I'm all in.
I mean, if others feel otherwise, that's just my opinion.
No, that's good. I like it.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. So now, what do you guys think? So 1 would be the union and teachers. A would be union and teachers. B would be finance and advisory. C would be the principals and maybe other /admin. I'll say, because we can include, curriculum and special ed and stuff. And then C, D would be parents.
I think you could have the administrators at the same meeting with the teachers.
You sure?
Yep. I think you might want to carve out some space in how you frame it and say, love to hear just from, the rank and file now about what your thoughts are on these things, and then to the administrators, ask them, what types of things come up with you around either the educational favorability of the different models or the administrative difficulty of implementing any of the models.
Sure.
I think
You want to cut it down to
good.
3, ABC, union, teachers, paras, of course, and admin and principals. B would be finance and advisory, and then C would be parents.
Mhm.
All right.
Are we forgetting any stakeholders?
Do we want
I mean,
facilities?
students?
Do we need facilities there at any point?
Excuse me?
Would facilities
Something.
be considered at any point? Just because I think one of those things, I mean, it's great that we're going to invite finance and advisory, but I think it's also, when we talk about, costs associated with, I think it's important to know some of those costs about, what certain options are going to cost.
Sure. Why don't we have, when we meet with finance and advisory, have facilities and cafeteria workers? What do you think? Is that in line with what you were thinking?
Why food services?
There's going to be a cost if we open up a school that's closed or close a school that's open, and how that's going to work with moving people around or whatever.
I meant more of like, for instance, we talked about what each building needs, those capital costs. And I know we've just,
Okay, so you want facilities to meet with finance and advisory as part of that group?
Possibly. I mean, they could be separate. I'm not really sure. But I think maybe if we have, we.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I misread.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe
so then
we
D would be
finalize that
facilities.
next meeting we have, we know what our next meeting is going to be. We just have to figure out, do we want to do that in 2 weeks? because so we'd probably want to do that before break, so maybe in 2 weeks or sooner if possible. I know schedules, John, and making sure that everyone's available, but maybe 2 weeks from now, would that work for everybody?
Yep.
Sure.
And we'll
So
start
again-
with the union, and that would include, so that's obviously staff, because it's the teachers and the parents, and then admin. And the admin includes principals and director level, so I think if we invite them and include them in the conversation at our next meeting, and then from there, based on that information, we can decide how to proceed and who are invited to the next meeting and go from there. But I think we have a good roadmap as far as like the different various groups and stakeholders that we'd like to invite and have conversations with, but.
All right, so just to get those, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So I'm calling it Group A, union and teachers, paras, admin, which includes principals, curriculum directors, and the such. Group B would be finance and advisory from both towns, of course. Group D would be parents. C would be parents. And then D would
Excuse
be-
me, just shut. Excuse
Yep.
me. Would be advisory and selectmen.
Oh, sure. Do we want to have finance advisory and the selectmen?
Yeah, that's always a good show.
Sounds great. Okay, good. C
Is
would
there
be-
any need to invite capital planning to those, or not
Yes.
necessarily, Don?
Yeah, I think maybe when we have facilities, we invite capital planning.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
And then C would be the parents, / other stakeholders.
Everybody else.
Yeah.
Community.
Do we want to maybe change C and D, the name, just because, do we want to bring the parents in earlier? Do we want to wait until we have some different options and then get it out and see what the parents say to that? Because we started with the parents as the strategic plan bringing us here. What do you think about that?
I mean, after we talk to everybody in facility, we'd have some numbers maybe and
Yeah.
real plans.
So C would be facilitators and capital planning, and then D would be parents and the rest of the community. Is that okay?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
I think parents and the rest of the community, you have to be a little bit more specific about. I'm not sure that you just say any parent. I think we probably want to target parents who are in leadership roles right now. So like PTO parents, school council parents, special ed advisory council parents. I think you want to get like that core group in to a meeting type setting. Then I think there needs to be some discussions and outreach to all the parents. But I don't think you want to start by just going to all the parents.
Okay, no, that's great. So D would become PTO parents, and then school people who are on the PTOs, and then the school councils.
Is this exclusive to PTO board members, or could it be additional parent representatives that maybe are not part of that, but?
I think it could be people who have any kind of position in the PTO.
Okay.
And then we'd have like a big community one after all that.
I think at least one. I think probably more than one, though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm saying these are the beginnings that we have these four groups, and then we come down to, okay, what are our options? Financially, everything's accounted in, and these are our best options. And then we sit down to the parents with the general community, which would be E, would be everyone, I guess. Oh, yeah, E would be everyone. And then that would be more of like, okay, here are the options that we have. What do you think? And then eventually, shouldn't we bring the school committee in here as well, right?
Yes, that's very important.
So do we want to do B, finance advisory, selectmen, and school committee?
Well, I wonder if we bring the school committee here, or if this group just has an agenda item on a school committee meeting where,
Yeah. There's, we have under subcommittee, I mean, and then we can add any agenda topics pertaining to this, but I think this is an ongoing conversation. So far, every meeting we've had, we've presented at the committee level, and keeping them abreast as to where we are, what we've discussed, and what our plan is for our next meeting. So I think that, this will just be an agenda item for the school committee.
Okay.
And I think that if we need to invite them at a different time or have a special meeting, we can absolutely do so.
No, Michelle,
but I-
that's fine.
yeah.
Yep, that's fine. So we have A, B, C, D, and E now. These are the groups that we have.
And if there's anyone that we didn't think of, I mean, it's still sort of open, where if we realize that, oh, this group should be part of the conversation, we can add them as we move along. But I'm pretty sure we did a pretty good job covering
Yeah,
who we'd like to have part of the conversation.
right. Just as something that I wanted to share with you that I got from these teachers that I was speaking to over the weekend. When they said that there was neighborhood schools in Wilbraham, now granted, we're looking at a hybrid of neighborhood schools, but from what I heard was that the two big things, one we already brought up about, the different resources, might be at one place, one school when a student's at another school. But they did bring up, as part of the reasons why they went to this model, was that the PTOs got very, very competitive and they weren't working together. So I think that when we do something like this, I think we should have one PTO for each grade, even if they're at different schools. I think it's something that we should consider, just to help against this ultra competitiveness, which was something that I never even thought of it, but 3 teachers I talked to this weekend brought it up, and I was amazed. Cool.
Great.
Good? 2
Okay,
weeks?
I'm just gonna pull up the date for the next meeting,
The 28th, Michelle, March
Okay.
28th.
March 28th, 5:30, still works for everybody?
Yeah, good.
Yep.
so,
Oh, wait a minute. The 20, is that the week after school vacation?
Nope,
March
No,
28th.
okay, that's
yeah,
of this
that's
month.
before, yep, right
Yeah,
before.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, school break, the week after I'm going to be, or that Monday, that Tuesday, I'm going to be in California. So I can call in remotely or whatever. But yes, the 28th of September is not a problem. I mean, of March. March.
so,
Been going 14 hours today.
Sean,
Yeah.
if you would send me pics of your notes, where you were,
Yeah.
numbering them, what I will do is I'll produce another memo that just sort of has that even shorter list.
Yeah.
And I'll send that to Damien along with the request that he reach out in whatever way he thinks is most appropriate, because we'd really like to have them at the table at the next meeting.
Do you think we could send it also to finance and advisory and the selectmen and the PTO and the school counselors and facilities and capital planning? Do you think we could send this memo out to them saying that, we're going to be meeting with, with the groups in the future, but this is what we're basing it off of. We've culled down this 136 down to, what is it now, 12 options or something?
I would feel more comfortable sharing that, just hearing you say that, with the school committee, or having this group share it with the school committee before we start, distributing it that widely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that, right, so we'll present to the school committee. Don, he does a report, he reports back to his select board.
Yeah,
And I believe you have communication with your advisory board, and then these are also posted, minutes are made available. Hopefully Terry's able to catch up now on what was missed, and she, I'm sure, conveys the information back to her board as well.
Sure.
all right.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, were the other things on the agenda, or was that it?
That was our primary.
Oh, okay. Super.
We met our objective tonight. We
All
had,
right.
we just, the regional agreement's on there, but just because, these configurations do impact the regional agreement, but
Yeah.
there's no really discussions at this time, so we met our objective tonight, so we're in good shape.
Okay, great. Second.
Second? Okay, great, roll call, all in favor, we do?
Whoever votes, we have to do roll
Don.
call.
Okay, Don,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
myself, I. We are adjourned 6:34.
Thanks, have a good day, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Aye.
Oh.